Hello and welcome to the 4-7 podcast. My name's RJ. This is Mike. We are just two normal guys talking about Christian music, talking about faith, talking about life, whatever happens to come our way. We've got an amazing episode today. It's a different episode. We have not only one guest today, but we have two guests and a cat live. So thank you for joining us. Mike, who is here? And then maybe Paul can tell us who else is here.
Hey guys, Mike here. So we have two amazing artists. Paul Colman, you guys might know him from the Paul Colman Trio. You might know him from Newsboys. And then we have the legendary Jonas Woods.
I mean, most people are going, who's that?
I feel like you just said like, oh, here's this dude Paul, and then legendary, amazing, over the top Jonas Woods.
Yeah, you might have it backwards, Mike.
Bye.
How you doing, guys?
Very good.
Guys,
and we had a little warm up, folks, before, and let me just say, it's roasty toasty here right now. We're all enjoying each other. We're all vibing. It's lovely. It's lovely, isn't it?
You guys might, this podcast, seriously, you might hear me laughing more than talking today, which is going to be great and it's going to be awesome.
I'm praying for that.
Yeah. So we got Paul and Jonas. We got Paul and Jonas here. Paul, where are you right now?
I am at my desk in my home in Franklin, Tennessee.
And Jonas, where are you?
I am just in the room behind Paul. I'm sitting in Batavia, New York, in a hotel casino.
Batavia, how you doing up there in Batavia?
Hey, get out of here, guy.
Hey, get us a drink up there in Batavia.
It's the wrong accent, dude.
And this is exactly why I wanted you guys both on the podcast, because you guys are actually great friends. You guys actually know each other.
Well,
yeah,
we just met.
Yeah, we go way back to a night in Batavia at a local coffee shop.
You better know each other. Jonas is in his closet in the back.
That's true.
And Jonas could be coming out of the closet. Wait, never mind.
I pray that
we're not going there.
So I'll tell you how
we prayed about this, Mike.
You guys set me up for that joke.
No, he's weird. He's talking to his mic. Anyway,
so
we met. I'll tell you.
How'd you meet?
Someone who was managing Jonas at the time was looking for a producer to work with his music, and so he suggested we meet. So we met. Never met before. We walked into a restaurant. We had a great conversation. I think we immediately went, "Yep, we're going to do this." And then that night, I invited Jonas to come to one of my shows and get up and sing with me. Fortunately, I had him up for the last song because once I heard him sing, I was like, I'm not sure I was going to recover if I'd done that earlier in the night. That would have been a bad move because the man does have some soulfulness and some joy when he sings. So then we just started working together and we became great friends.
Now, you produced one of Jonas's records. Now, Jonas, what record was that?
It was called Tales of the Bittersweet.
Sweet.
Yes. Absolutely.
Now, you're actually producing a record now for another artist in New York. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Nice.
Yep.
Now you are also on Big Bear Records. How did that come about?
Well, it's Old Bear Records.
Old Bear Records.
Old Bear. Yeah.
Big old bear.
Yeah, they're big.
A little twist.
It's a little almost the same thing, mate. So close. All right. So. What did you ask me? I
don't even know. No.
He wants to know how you ditched me and moved on to them.
Oh,
yes.
That was easy.
How did you? Wait, I don't even know what the question was, but
you were asking how we got
or the recording
Old Bear Records. Yeah.
So how did you get? Because you were independent for a while. What you still technically are, but you weren't on a label.
So
you weren't on a label before.
Right. So I did a show in New England, and I was called by a promoter, and he was like, "Hey, I have a spot to fill. Could you come fill it?" There's nothing. You never feel more wanted when you get that call. And so I was like, "Yeah."
How career was that phone call?
Of course I do. And so I went out, and it was they were all Old Bear artists. I walked into this thing, and these guys all knew each other. Well, they were just a cool group of people, and certainly wasn't looking for another record label. I've been done with that for a long time, and anyway, they started talking to me about what it would be to get involved there, and I'm kind of like, I don't know, man. Anyway, it basically just came down to a conversation that was basically, hey, look, we just really like your stuff. Just want to help you. It's not about taking anything from you. We just want to be creative with you, and let's try it. So I tried it, and it's been pretty good. So I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the camaraderie of all the community that they bring to it. That's basically the gist.
Yeah, and talking to you for years. If you guys don't know, Jonas is one of my favorite artists because of his heart. He's hysterical, and the way he can tell stories from stage is like nobody's business. I like to call him the modern day James Taylor.
Ooh,
That's a good one, right?
He's going to like that comparison.
And,
I had to break away from that, though.
But
that was one of the things that Paul and I fought in the studio a lot. Was like just
now, people. When you hear the word fought,
yeah,
you might conjure up all sorts of images of fisticuffs and stuff like that. But this was very much in a sort of a Socratical fight.
right. A battle of the minds.
Exactly. Thank you very much. And articulate words too.
Yeah, probably.
And I just said, listen, we play as a team and we do it my way.
Yeah, I think that's how it went. Something like that.
If you guys have been listening to this podcast, you guys know the one thing that I love is old school Christian music. Fun fact: Mr. Jonas Woods was in Farewell June, and hit that band there was the opening act for Petra final tour.
Woo.
Petra. You know how much? I mean, it was a fun tour. I never had to wear spandex before, but it worked. It was fun. It was a lot more fun than you would think.
Yeah, it was like a butcher shop window out there.
Now, Paul,
it's a little snug in the under regions, but other than that, man, it's not too bad actually.
Now, Paul, let's kind of go into you. No, you were in you were in the Newsboys.
True.
Now,
yes.
How did the Paul Colman trio start? Actually, let's bring it back even farther than that. So, your dad was an associate pastor, is that correct? Over in Crossway Baptist Church.
Look at you with your Wikipedia research. Yes, he
Listen,
he
not
was
Wikipedia. I wouldn't say Wikipedia. Okay, it's Wikipedia.
It's yeah, easy.
That's good. That's good. No, my dad was firstly I was born in England actually, and in the 60s. Back in the 60s when I was born. And my dad was in the theatre then, and then when I was 7 or 8, we moved to Australia. He was still in the theatre. Then I was about 9. He became a Baptist pastor. That is correct. So I grew up in Melbourne, Australia.
Yeah, and so your mother was English, your dad was from Australia, correct?
Correct. Mother's Welsh. If she ever hears me say she was English, she may discontinue payments.
And fun fact, you were actually an English teacher.
I was. So please put your hand up next time you want to ask a question. Yes. Mike. Yes.
There you go.
Yes, Mike.
So how did you go from being born in England, go to Australia, you become an English teacher, then to the Paul Colman Trio?
Well, I was singing in pubs. Now, for those people who might find it strange for what people might refer to as a Christian artist or a gospel artist to sing in pubs, in Australia, a lot of Christians, they think everything's like Hillsong. No, there's just one thing. It's like an anomaly in one little part of Sydney. Nothing else is like that. And there's one down in Melbourne called Planet Shakers, and the rest is just atheists in pubs. So if you want to get paid, you have to sing to everyone. So I would sing in church on Sunday for free, and then I'd sing in pubs Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and get paid. And there's not many musicians on the eastern side of Melbourne who would have international aspirations, who are really good and would be followers of Jesus. So there's about 3 of us, and then we met, and I had all these shows, and so we joined up, and I just called up the first promoter and said, so I'm bringing the band, and he goes, what band? And I go, my band? Dude, we've never played together before. We're huge, man. Oh, what's the band called? Paul Colman Trio. Paul Colman Trio. Yeah, Paul Colman Trio. Yep, that's it. And so then it kind of stuck, and I didn't mind because at that time I was pretty happy that my name was in it. Then when I had therapy, I sort of felt a little regret. But Anyway, but yeah, that's how we got together. And so we guys wanted to be international. We wanted to be an international band. All of us played in, didn't really play in church, in faith community settings that much, but we were all very passionate about our faith. And so when we started playing, the audience that we got was very eclectic, which is kind of what I've always loved. There was a lot of religious people there. There was a lot of people there, and because we were funny, and our songs were kind of deep and. Actually, I will say this though. When we got to America, I suddenly realized that lyrically, I had a hunch that we weren't going to really make it because I made the grave mistake of basing my lyrics around the parables of Jesus rather than the teachings of Billy Graham. So I know it's my fault.
Can you explain that?
Oh,
well, what I did was
I love that.
Jesus kind of talked in parables, and only his best mates took him a while to figure it out.
Yeah.
So it was like a story that had a meaning, but you had to really dig into it. Whereas a 3-point sermon with an altar call is kind of what the 4.5-minute Christian song needs to be to satisfy that audience. So I thought we were cooked at the start, which we kind of were. But that was just a different genre. So that's kind of how that all happened. That was the transition.
Well, okay. Well, you just brought up something that what was the view from where you were of American Christianity or American Christian
fortunate.
music?
I've been very, very fortunate because my dad was a very well-known pastor. He was kind of like the who was the guy that did all the music for Billy Graham? Bernard Shaw or someone, or whatever his name was.
I don't remember.
He was a guy. So my dad was kind of that guy that he was a well-known person in the media in Australia. So when he became a pastor and a singer, like he sold out the Opera House a few times, and he was on Carol shows, and he was on TV, and people knew him. So he was sort of like a well-known Christian celebrity. Therefore, all the people that came to Australia, like Leon Patillo, like Larry Norman, Barry Maguire, all these old school guys, they stayed at my house. So I got to know Larry Norman. So when I started listening to his records, I was like, oh my God, this guy's incredible. Like he can go from a real straight gospel song to something very political straight away. And so that was the first kind of music that I heard. And then I met Steve Taylor in 1983. And I fell in love with his music. I Want to Be a Clone. He was so edgy. So the Christian music that I first heard from America wasn't Amy Grant, Michael W. Smith, who are wonderful people, but their music's just a little bit more conservative. Whereas Steve Taylor and Larry Norman, they had some super edgy stuff. So that was what I first associated with American Christian music. I loved it. And I also loved the father of American gospel music.
Billy Ray Cyrus.
Andre Crouch.
Okay.
I had Andre Crouch's Live in London double album, 1978.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what I associated with American Christian music. So I didn't really know much more than that. That was stuff, and I was like, I love it. And then I remember hearing Jesus Freak in like 92 or something, and that was like a really great record. So that was the stuff I heard. I heard some early Newsboy stuff where there was a lot of like references to bouncers and ballet, and those early songs on their records were quite well, they were a little bit subtle, like "Take Me to Your Leader." There's a few songs that, even though that breakfast song, I never really liked that much, but there were other songs that I sang it 311 times, but not. It was just like they were really kind of eclectic lyrics, and then I realized that Steve Taylor wrote those lyrics anyway.
Yeah.
So that was the stuff I first heard, and I loved it. I thought it was awesome.
Nice. So Jonas, what is your view growing up of Australian Christian music and the Australian Christian scene?
Yeah, I think I should just not take that question. Just be that cool guy in the interview. Be like, man,
there really isn't anything. Like, there's not really anything.
There's not much there.
There's very little. There's only 30 million people. There wasn't enough for a genre. Really, I mean.
Yeah. No. I think I knew absolutely. The only thing I knew about Australia was kangaroos until I met Paul. To be honest with you, so that's a testament to the American school system.
At one
Jonas,
point, my band sold 33% of the Christian music sold in Australia. That shows you
really?
how small the genre is.
That's cool, man.
So Jonas,
It's 11 records.
How did you get involved in the music industry? Because your family is, your dad is a carpenter,
Yeah.
your mom, I believe, is a stay-at-home mom. You have one, two, three, three brothers and a sister.
He's going to tell you everything about your life if you don't start talking.
So
Okay.
my question to you is, how did you get wrapped in? Because your brother plays music, your dad does not play music at all.
Not really, no.
So
I
how
can't
did
even
this all
imagine
happen
that.
with you?
When I was a little kid, I had an opportunity to play violin, and so my mother asked me if I wanted to do it, and she said, if I do this with you, I'm going to force you to commit to 3 years, because it's a big deal. So I was freaking 5 years old, so I'm like, I don't know, I guess so. Anyway, so I started on the violin, and I've always liked music. I never considered that being a professional musician, whatever that means, or being paid to do it for a living was even a remote possibility. But being in college, I started just bands and hanging out with friends that were talented, and started doing shows around town. Again, never with any aspiration to go anywhere with it. And I was approached by a producer. His name was Jonathan David Brown. Johnny was a producer for Petra, actually, and for Twyla Paris and a couple other people. And there's a side story to that I'll leave alone. But regardless, he took us to Nashville, and that weekend that we were there, we ended up signing a record deal, which in retrospect was a really foolish decision. In some ways, I learned a lot, and I toured a lot, but I feel like I was hurt, or I did most of the wrong things, which in a lot of ways is actually in some ways beneficial. Well, it's entirely beneficial to where I am now, but it was a long trip. And when the band finally broke up, the decision was, do I keep going forward and doing this as a solo artist, or just let it go? And my wife and I decided together just to keep going. And so, I don't know, I wholly enjoy my life the way it is now. It is way, way less complicated. And, I get to travel with my wife and kids. And so I'm not going to be on the radio, probably. I don't really fight for that anymore. Don't really see the benefit for me personally. But I don't know. I just enjoy what I do,
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So Jonas, so you were on a label, and then when you went independent, when you went solo, you were off a label.
Yeah.
Why? What was it? What was that decision process? Why didn't you go back onto a label at that point?
Well, a lot of that in the music industry, it's not a matter of want. People have to want you a lot more than
Correct.
you really want them. You know what I mean? Like, I can call up Capitol Records tonight and talk to somebody on the phone, but that doesn't do me any good.
Because I'm the secretary, so
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a weird place to be, So, but no, honestly, when I left the record label, I had about a good few months of stressing out about, like, how do I do this without that? And then it took me all about 5 minutes to go, oh wow, I just keep going. I don't really require all of that stuff, And Paul will tell you, the industry has obviously changed so incredibly. I mean, over the last 17 years that I've been doing this, it's like it's not even the same thing, not even close.
Yeah. So let's go into how has the music industry changed? Because we were talking earlier off when we weren't live. Christian music in general is not what it was 20 years ago. It's very different today. How has the music industry or the record companies changed from the 90s when, Paul, you were in the Newsboys, which we will get to in a moment? How has it changed?
Jonas, you're the one that said it changed. Go ahead.
Well, for me, I mean, the change that I've seen has gone from when I first signed a record deal, it was almost a requirement that you had a booking agent, a manager, a business manager, a publicist. And without the record label, those parts of the puzzle were difficult to find, like people that were just independently. This is just my experience.
Yep.
But it was difficult to find those people that would work with us on a very serious level unless we had the hub which is the record label. And now, I mean, you can hire yourself a manager, a booking, all of those things completely independent from a record label, and they can be really good. They don't have to be just some mom and pop thing. I mean, you can really call some of the bigger names if you want to, which not necessarily that beneficial. But so from my experience, it's just that as an artist, if you're really good and you're willing to put in the work, and there is a lot of work to be done, you can absolutely do this for a living. It's hard, trust me, and COVID hasn't made it any easier. But
Yeah.
but it can be done.
So for people just listening, again, we have Paul and we have Jonas. There are two separate artists. Getting back to Paul and your story, you've done solo work. You've done the Paul Colman Trio. You were in the Newsboys for a short period in the late 2000s. Can you tell me a little bit about your time moving the Paul Colman Trio to the United States? What was that like for you guys? Was that an awesome moment for you, or did that end up being an American slap in the face? Like what was that experience for you?
No, it was fantastic. Just before, go back, when I was 18, I came and lived in America for a year. You have to understand, growing up in Australia, we just love America. Like, we have it's on TV shows and music and comedy and sports, and we're fascinated with America. We're so excited when we get here. So when I came to America, I was stoked, and I fell in love with Americans. I lived in Washington, D.C. for a while, in Montana. It's natural kind of jump there. I just fell in love with Americans. I lived in a house with 32 guys from all over the country, and I just wanted to get back. It wasn't a cult. Don't worry.
It wasn't
anything dodgy.
I'll be right back.
But I fell in love. Was it something I said, Jonas? Okay, cool. Well,
I think Jonas is going to the bathroom.
I did my talk before, but that's just because I'm a professional. He's, old bear. Yeah, cool.
Old new bear, whatever.
Yeah. So I loved Americans, and we really wanted to be here. And we met the guys in Third Day. We met those guys in Australia, and they closed for us. And so they invited us to come back and open for them. They closed for us. It's all just a matter of how you see it. On their tour in 2002. So by the time we turned up, we had a national tour. We already had a producer. Monroe Jones agreed to produce that record. So we kind of had all this stuff going. We were excited, man. I loved getting around America. I've now been to all 50 states. I've sung in all 50 states. And on that tour, we were like 35 states or something. It was incredible. I loved it. Mudbugs down there in Biloxi, and visiting Red Rocks in Denver, and going up and eating lobster in Maine, and being in New Mexico and seeing the desert, and it was fantastic. And those guys were incredible. And we were on the road with Bebo Norman and with Tate, and we had a fantastic time. So we loved it. It was a wonderful time in our lives. But it was hard to get here. Like, it was just visas, and we had to sell 140 records a night to break even.
Wow.
Well, we also didn't realize the way tour buses worked, and that Bebo got on there for $20 a night, and we carried the rest of it. Good job, Bebo. We didn't know the way that worked. His management did. Good on him. Good on you, mate. But it was wonderful. We just had a great time. We just, I love the people of this country. Like, I'm a fan of Americans. Americans are very different to any other country that was sort of colonized, or at least the attempting of colonized by Britain. I mean, you guys came over and went, nah, you know what, cricket? Nah, baseball. Soccer? No, thanks. Football. Rugby? No, basketball. And you know what?
I love it.
We're not going to drive on the left-hand side of the road. We're going on the right. Plus, Peter, no, we're taking the language all the way. Peter, right? Okay, now, and that's just something about Americans, man. And I just fell in love with the spirit of America. Just wonderful, wonderful people. And, I know there's a lot of bashing of America, but if you pull off the road and just go to a subdivision and knock on the door, that's America. I mean, it depends where you are, of course. Sometimes there's a gated community and you have to jump the fence, but mostly those people are just awesome. So we were having a great time. We were so loving it and just getting out in front of people, and we were all seasoned musicians. I was 34. Like, we'd done our 10,000 hours by that stage. We weren't like your typical opening band. Like, we would go out there and we slayed it, like, because we were just good at what we did. Weren't good at anything else, but we were good at that. And so it was a killer time. We loved it, man. We loved it. Made so many great friends, and so yeah, I got nothing bad to say about that. Third Day
I
guys
noticed
were
that
amazing.
when you were saying about all these great states in America, you didn't mention Rhode Island.
Well, the tour went to Rhode Island, but we
You missed it.
I'm not sure what we did that day.
Rhode Island, there's nothing great in Rhode Island.
I think we played in Providence.
That's not true.
Rhode Island's
I'm a
not
fan
that.
of Rhode Island.
Well, we went close to it, and if they wanted to come, they could turn up if they want.
That's
I mean,
right.
the roads were all clear.
So Paul,
No, okay, so
go for it. Now, so Paul, so after the Paul Colman trio, how do you get into the Newsboys?
Well, here's a few interesting facts. So this goes on to show you how small the community of Christians who kind of in Australia would be excited about being international as a musician. Peter Furler played drums for my dad when he was 16.
Really?
I remember seeing those guys and for King and Country, like those kids, I remember them when they were little kids. And their dad managed my dad, and so we all kind of knew each other and everyone. And so I knew those guys, and I knew them, in the 90s. I would fly out and, go visit them at shows and hang out at Pete's place and Phil's place and whatever else. So I had no idea of the enormity of, at that stage, the touring industry of what people referred to as Christian music. No idea about it at all. And so I just knew those guys for a long time. And when the Paul Colman trio ended, I signed to, Peter's record label, which was In Pop. Did a record on that, and then one day they asked me to come down and open for them for a weekend down in Florida, so I did. And I didn't know that they were sort of going, "What do you think about Colman in the band?" And I didn't know that. And then when Peter asked me to join the band, I just thought it was kind of out of left field. But I'd also reached a point in my life personally where I just had gone as far as I could, running on the fumes of the mixture of good stuff and really unhealthy stuff. Shame and guilt and fear and anxiety and depression and all these things that I kind of shoved down, and I got to the point where I couldn't shove it down anymore. So by the time Peter asked me, I was actually praying and saying, God, I want to keep doing music, but I want to lose all the momentum I've created out of my own steam and my own ego that's mixed with your gift and mixed with that. And so when Peter asked me to join, everyone thought it was a career move. For me, it wasn't. It was a therapy move. I went from being, my own name in everything to just Paul, the new guy. It was wonderful. It was a wonderful thing for me. And playing really music that I had nothing to do with, doing backing vocals and playing guitar, which was, I'd never really played the electric guitar a whole lot besides in the studio where you can go, cut, can you edit that? Cool. I'd never really kind of played a whole song above the 7th fret without a capo. So it was definitely a learning curve for me, and it was wonderful because those guys I'd known for a long time, and just being one of the guys rather than the guy was wonderful and what I really needed for my character. So I owe a lot to those guys. It was the first thing I ever left well, actually, because when I left the trio, the relationships were not good, and we have since reconciled and now are the best of friends. But it was much more. It was that kind of time for me, a time of kind of decreasing and serving. And okay, it was with a headlining band with a private jet, but for me that really wasn't. It was nice, but it really wasn't the focus for me. The focus was actually kind of like very, very opposite. It was serving and humbling myself. It didn't seem like that when I was rocking on the stage, but that wasn't what I was thinking about. And my marriage at that time was disintegrating. I tried to fix it and I couldn't. And so it was unbelievably humbling.
Now, it sounds like you're pretty much saying like going to the Newsboys was less stressful. It was more therapeutic. Yeah. It was more nice just being in the background instead of being in the front.
Yeah. I mean, as in the background as you can be, stage right, the only guitar player in front of 15,000 people on a nightly basis. Yes, but it definitely felt like that. I know that might sound really weird, but it really did. I just couldn't believe these guys wanted me in their band because my self-image of myself my whole life has been quite bad. I always
Mhm.
think I'm too much for people. I'm too extra. They wouldn't want me to hang around them. Like that's always been my self-talk. So for me to be in the band and then just to have written some songs that they still play, it's like amazing to me.
You
I'm
know,
like, I got to
I
write
can
with
re-
Steve
I
Taylor.
can
I got to
I
write
can
with Steve
resonate with
Taylor.
you.
I got to
Yeah,
tell
that's
Steve
amazing.
Taylor across the room I don't like that line. I nearly soiled myself as I said the words.
You
Steve
know,
Taylor, the guy that I
I
grew up, and I'm like, I don't know about that line, Steve. I was like, who are you, you audacious, arrogant brat?
I can resonate with you because I have a very outgoing personality. I'm an extreme extrovert too. And like you, I kind of think like some people might think my personality can be too much sometimes. So yeah, like just like Jonas over here. But what was your thought process? Did you ever question God? Why are you putting me in this position? Why are you taking my other band away? And why are you putting me in a position with the Newsboys? Or were you more like, holy crap, this is amazing. Thank you for putting me in this position. Like, what was that mindset?
I think at the time, I don't know if anyone relates with this, but there comes a certain time in your life when the house of cards just falls down, and you just suddenly realize that, there's this. My therapist, one of my therapists, well, I wore a few out, but the first one, I never forget the day I turned up to therapy and I started talking, and I saw that look in his eyes like, oh, great, I'm going to be able to upgrade the car after all this year. Um, uh, but I remember him talking about onstage Paul and backstage Paul. And onstage Paul was the greatest guy you'll ever meet in your life. Backstage Paul was this very broken, immature little boy in the guise of a man, and that was the one that my wife interacted with. And it's amazing how many how many women I've talked to in the last 20 years who would talk about that experience of how oftentimes as men, like we've got everything we need, but we're living
Mm,
in this place of brokenness, and therefore
yeah.
we're not able to love and lead very well because we're broken. And I was the poster child of that person. So on stage, I was this fortress of confidence and power and incredible. But backstage, I was just terrified. I was terrified of life. I was terrified of relationships. And I'd just come to the point where I was done with that. I'd gotten to the point where I'm like, I can't fake this anymore. I don't want to fake this anymore. I want to be. Now, it never came out for me in obvious ways, drinking, sex, drugs. For me, it was much more internal, like looking for approval or being angry. It wasn't like in the typical story way for me. It never came out like that. But it was a situation where my wife said, I don't think you'll ever change. And I'm so unloved. I'm divorcing you. When you've traveled the whole world trying to win people over and you lose the one person that you're supposed to love, it's devastating. And it seems to me from the men that I've known that have been through this, and I can't speak for women, I don't know anything about you, I love you, but I had no idea, is that we either kind of run to more medication or we actually face our crap and go, all right, well, I want to figure this out. And that's what I did. For some reason, that's what I did. So when I finished the trio, I just said, guys, I can't do this anymore. I just can't do it. You need to find someone called Paul Colman and keep going or whatever. But I just can't lead anyone. I can't even lead my own family. And then I did the solo thing. And so when Peter asked me to join, it was almost like I felt like God was giving this opportunity to be in a situation where I wasn't the front person, I wasn't the main writer, I wasn't the main singer or anything. I could sort of be over here and yet still keep doing what I'm doing with these band of guys. And all of those guys are such good people. Like, I hear stories about newsboys all the time and blah, 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 and maybe together and whatever. But one on one or just those guys, they would do anything for me, anything at all. The great friends. And so I kind of like said, all right, God, I need to start again. I need to rebuild. And that's what that band was for me. And I know we sort of would talk about the industry and stuff as well. And there's some things I'd still like to say about that. But in the end, an industry or a church group or a soccer club or a country is all just made up of a bunch of people. And all those people are broken. And all those people are trying to do their best. So while we talk about a group, it really is just a bunch of people who, are going, well, I'm just trying to do the best I can in life. I'm just trying to be my best self, or, so in that way, like that's what I experienced that. And, there was a lot of things I experienced about the way the Christian music industry is. And like I said, I'm fine to talk about that. But that was my experience. It was much more a personal thing rather than like, I need a career jump. The trio's over. I can't go back to myself. How about the Newsboys? They're Australian, or at least some of them are. It wasn't quite like that at all. It was something that happened in a very different way.
Well, it's interesting that you bring up, the divorce. I myself am divorced. I was divorced 3 or 4 years ago now, and that's a really
Sorry to hear that.
tough situation. Yeah, I appreciate it. It's a really tough situation for a man, first off, but then second for a Christian man. It's something that the church has trouble talking about. The church has trouble helping with someone like that. I've been a part of circles where once that starts to happen, you have those Christian friends that are going to stick with you, and then there's others that have no idea what to do with you. So this question is kind of for Jonas and Paul, both of you. But Jonas, you are married and you have a relationship. So let's start with Jonas. What are some things that you do being in the Christian music industry and then also having a family? What are some things that you've discovered over the years that have helped solidify that marriage while being in this crazy world of Christian music?
I'll first say that I would never say that I do it exceptionally well, but for me, when we first got signed, we were in a band called Farewell June. Well, Becky was in that band with me. We were newly married at the time, but we started this together. And so we have been in this. And so in a weird way, like our entire marriage has been in the music industry. And so it's not like we were married and then this happened and it was all kind of like a learning, how does this work kind of a thing. It was just ingrained in us, same thing with our kids. Like our kids travel with us, but ever since they were born, they were on the road with us. And so they're just accustomed to it. But it doesn't mean it doesn't require work. I mean, it's like anything, I think that it's about balance, right? It's always going to be about balance. And I really do, I'm a goofball and Paul and I get along really well, I think, because we're both we don't take ourselves too seriously, but that's a really important quality trait, and you get into this industry where you're literally on a pedestal, right? You're literally on a stage. You literally have lights on you, and people literally pay to see you and applaud after everything you do. It's just a really bizarre thing, and it requires somebody else that keeps you grounded. And for me, it's been my wife. I've been lucky to have that, and that's not always the case, but I really genuinely believe the key is if you're going to do this, and I've learned to hate the word authenticity because it's been thrown around like such a catchphrase. But really, if you're an authentic person and you really don't take yourself too seriously and you get up there and just be a normal human being, it's a heck of a lot easier than putting on a front and trying to be a rock star. That's what I've experienced anyway. And I'll tell you, just listening to Paul talk, and I've known Paul for years now, but I mean, truly one of the more authentic people that I've ever met in my life. And I'm not saying this because I can say whatever I want. It's my moment. But this guy,
give it to him, Jonas. Give it to him.
This guy has invested his time and his love into my life. But it's not just, he produced a record for me and co-write songs with me. That's awesome because he's brilliant. But
stop it.
Having met Paul, the beautiful thing about who he is that he opened up his life to me, and he does this with everybody he meets. I mean, it's really, really, it's not just fascinating; it's absolutely brilliant to watch the connection. If you can't do that, and this is where I think most artists and pastors and anybody fail, is that they're not actually willing to get into the dirt a little bit with people, and they're not willing to show and be vulnerable with people. And I learned, I mean, just from the short time when we first started working together, so much, and so much to do with how my relationship with my wife. I mean, Paul spoke directly into my life on so many fronts of that. So, Paul's the guy to ask this question to, because he's the best for a lot of.
Well, I mean, I'm glad you brought it up, Paul, with the divorce, because again, I just had that happen a couple years ago. I'm now remarried. I have 17 billion kids now, and it's a totally different life. But I've learned a lot, through that. Just like you were saying, you can either go through that and be the same guy you were before that, or you can kind of face your crap, I think is what you said. Yeah. So what are some things that you have learned over the years? How have you changed since then to be able to speak into Jonas's life? Because it sounds like, he's being authentic and saying you spoke into his life. So how do you become that kind of guy after that?
I don't think you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just don't think you think about it. I think the minute you think about the word authentic, you're cooked.
Yeah. There you go.
I think that we've all tried it.
Yeah.
I think that the great thing about following Jesus that I've realized is that, I know this isn't necessarily related to Christian music necessarily, whatever. But what I've learned is that, as I started reading Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and John, and I noticed that Jesus never said the same thing to anyone the same way, ever. Like, he never seemed to repeat himself, at least from what we've read. He only said be born again to one person. What we do is we get that and like, oh, that's the phrase. Okay, XXL t-shirt. I'm a medium. Shut up. It's XXXL. Here we go. We're all wearing this. Here we go. You got it? But I'm a small. Mate! So we kind of catch this thing, but what seemed to be what seemed to be with Jesus of Nazareth was that it was this organic, fresh thing every time. Never said it the same way. And I started to think, well, how? Like, how did he do that? And it seems to me because he was led by the Spirit. It seems also it was because he knew who he was. So I thought, well, why am I not like that? Why don't I hear God's voice so clearly that it's just an organic, beautiful message every time? And that's because the other voices are louder than his voice. The voice of shame, the voice of fear, the voice of guilt, the voice of codependence, just to name a few. The voice of toxic shame, the voice of self-hatred, the voice of self-loathing, the voice of my father, the voice of my mother, the voice of my wife, the voice of my ex-wife. The voice of everyone is louder than God's voice. So when I walk into a room, I'm hearing people don't like me. I'm not sure I'm good here, as opposed to God saying, "You're my kid." Yes. So therefore, facing that stuff and letting and turning on the light, and light is love, and light is transparency, and light is confession, and light is community, and darkness is guilt, and darkness is fear. If you keep turning on the light, eventually those things, you see them and they run away because they can't handle the light, and God is the light. So therefore, if you keep reading, Jesus says to Nicodemus, those who are led by the Spirit, they're like the wind. Nobody knows which way the wind's going to go. And as I've traveled, I don't think I've ever met anyone less like the wind, like an American evangelical Christian, ever, in any country. And I've sung in 60 of them. I know exactly what they're going to do if I drop the F-bomb. I know what they're going to do if I have a drink. I know what they're going to do if I light up a cigarette. Not that I do any of those things except the F-bomb. And a drink. But what I mean is, like, Jesus was like the wind. He would respond to what was coming at him and led by the Spirit to what he was going to say in the situation. The issue is that when we become religious, we don't need the Spirit because we've got religion. We know exactly what to say because we learn it in the evangelism class. We kind of become like that. And the Christian music scene is built on that paradigm, which is why you can't write a song about your bad marriage and it go on the radio, even though 55% of the people listening have a bad marriage. You have to write about how great you are, and you have to be a role model. And if you're a girl, you have to start talking about how you're a virgin. And if you're, you have to start pretending. And the problem is that nobody's actually even like that. But for some reason, this whole genre is built on this paradigm. And I know everybody. Like, there's no one that isn't in my cell phone, right? And I'm the guy they all call when there's a problem, because they know I'm going to listen. I'm going to love them. I had a guy staying in my house a few weeks ago, big, well-known name in Christian music, going through a separation, called me because he thought, and I said, why'd you call me? And he goes, I know you would just say, come to my house. So I think a lot of times it's like the emperor's new clothes, you know. Everyone's going, oh, look at that outfit. Oh, yes, she's a beauty. And there's this little kid going, he's naked, and everyone's too afraid to say it. So I don't think there's anything wrong with the people at all in the whole Christian music thing. I've met them all. They're fantastic, from promoters to radio people to roadies to agents to artists. But the problem is that we've got a genre that's based on a paradigm that's almost undoable.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost impossible to try to do, and therefore when you try to do that, it's very difficult. You know, it's very difficult to do. I like Jesus, I like money, and I like music, but when you put them together, it's a bit of a filthy old mess, isn't it?
Well, it is, and I like what you're saying, because I think
I said a lot. Sorry.
No, but this truly resonates with me here. American Christianity, to me, is not what Christianity is supposed to be. American Christianity, especially in the past 10, 20 years, it's all about image, how you look, what like you don't see too many authentic Christians telling you, my day just sucks. I had the worst day ever. It's always, you can't talk about politics, you can't talk about religion, you can't talk about politics, you can't talk about sex, but you can talk about giving because we need the money. Like, American Christianity, to me, is not what it's supposed to be. And that has also gone into the Christian music industry, which I really want to talk to you guys about as well. The Christian music industry is literally cookie cutter. If you fit in this hole, you can do it. Is that how you guys
No,
agree?
I think that cookie cutter is your heart. If you imagine, I've never used this analogy. This could really be average, or it could be genius. We'll find out if I'm led by the Spirit or something else in a second, okay? But it's like, when you said that, I got the image of a gingerbread man.
No word of a lie. I was thinking of a gingerbread man.
Pastor, I have this image of a gingerbread man. Okay, thank you, Paul. Shut up. You're welcome. But the heart, like, because the thing about it is that cookie cutter, all those people that we're talking about, they're all real people. But I'm saying the part that you're allowed to show is the cookie cutter a little bit. But they're not cookie cutter people. It's just that's, for whatever reason, that's the part that you're really only allowed to show. And I kept saying to people that write these songs where every song's about God, I'm like, either I don't love him like you do, or you just, how can you write 10 songs about God in a row? Like, what am I, like an atheist? Like, I love God. But by the third one, I'm writing about something else. Like, I love him as much as, but like, I couldn't write 10 love songs in a row. I couldn't write 10 songs, God, you're great. God, you're amazing. I'm like, I'm either unholy, or what are you doing? Like, how do you do that? I mean, in the end, you know, grace and faith. I mean, there's a few rhymes that you just, what else can you do? I don't know how people do that, but I know that industry is based really good people trying to put something out that's only a part of who they are. I don't think they're cookie cutter people. I think that the thinking is cookie cutter.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, everyone's got this idea that that's the idea we're supposed to keep up. And so I would say the problem starts in the pulpits.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
Thinking comes from.
Yeah, Jonas, you've had two albums that are very different. And I think what we're speaking of here is what you're doing. I mean, you had Tales of the Bittersweet, which was a little heavier, and then you had Whispers, which is a little bit more or less heavy, songs about your kids, songs about your wife, things like that. I really enjoy that you were okay with writing one way for this album and one way for another album, because that's just what you were going through. Do you put a lot of thought into, I'm just going to write whatever I'm feeling? Or do you sometimes get lost in what he was saying and thinking, I need to write 10 love songs about God? Like, how do you feel about that writing process?
Yeah, there is a pull there. There's no doubt about it. But I have been able to stay above water with that, in that I'm a better just songwriter than I am like a worship writer, or I never considered myself a Christian songwriter. I mean, I don't really consider myself a Christian artist, although I'm a full blown Christian. I mean, and I play in churches. You know what I mean? I just like, well, this is my art, and I write really from my guts. And I'm not like the kid that's like, oh, I gotta have a record out every year. I just like, well, now I have enough songs to do a record, and so let's do it. And I do push myself. I am trying to do a bit more, but I'm a life guy. Like, you write a song about. I have a song that I was just talking about this the other day. I don't know if I showed Paul this song. I may have even given you this song. I don't remember now, but I have a song called. I just remembered it the other day. It's called. It's about a toxic relationship with a girl, and it's this really weird song that just doesn't fit anything that I have gone through. But I wrote this song, and I'm in love with it.
What song is it? Is it called Poison something?
Yeah, Poison Love. That's right.
I listened to the demo the other day.
Song,
I was hoping to release it and hoping that you'd forgotten that you'd given it.
I want you to have it. The song starts off with first time that she saw me, she told me that she loved me as she held a bouquet of red flags in her hand that were so pretty at the time.
Woo!
Right? So you've got like these, just like, but this is a whole song about this crazy girl, And I'm like, Lord, I don't know where this song came from, but it's a lot of fun to write. And so I don't know, you know what I mean? I will find inspiration in bizarre places for sure. But I have found that unless I'm with somebody like Paul, to sit down and just write, that's tough times right there. I got to have somebody that says you can do better. Paul, when we write together, I mean, this guy, he's like, yeah, no, that's not.
I'm kind though. I'm kind. Don't make me.
You're very kind, but you were definitely.
Can you guys talk a little bit about? Now, you guys did do, some work together on. I think it was on Tales of the Bittersweet, right? That's what you're saying.
Yep.
What was that like working together? Because I feel like in speaking with you for the last hour and getting to know you two, was it hard to actually accomplish anything with how friendly you are? Or did you find it to be just really easy?
I mean, I found it easy. I had longed, but I didn't realize that I needed. That's the first time I ever co-wrote with anybody. It was with Paul, and so that experience was like just glamorous, in the sense that I'm like, my goodness, I have longed for people. What you don't realize is when you're a songwriter and you're just in your own world and you're writing songs and releasing your songs, they're just not that great. They're just not. And unless you have somebody there that's willing to say, that's not that great. You could do that better. You should rework it.
Really?
Now, Paul's not like that. I'm just saying that. Okay, so Mike, you know the song Worried, right?
Yeah, it's a great song.
So Worried is a great
Actually
song.
a fantastic.
Do you mean worried?
Worried. That's how
I am not worried.
So
yes,
that's right. Sign me up, baby.
I never.
But you
heard
know
all
that
12
song,
keys before.
That song was recorded before, and I have two versions of it.
Yeah.
And when I went into the studio, I told Paul, I was like, I think I'd like to rework this, and he was like, yeah, well, we got to do something about the song. He's like, it needs some attention, right? But it took the song from being just an average song to the song that if I don't sing it in concert, people are upset about it,
Really, really, really good song.
But no, it was easy, man. It's been easy. We had the best time in the studio.
Have you guys, any of you two guys ever play golf?
I do play golf.
Play golf?
I have failed miserably at the driving range.
Okay. Well, one of the things that's interesting about golf is that you're not a professional, but you can tell if someone's lifting their head up when they hit the ball.
Yeah.
So you can say to your mate, hey, take it or leave it. You're lifting your head up, and that's why you're topping the ball.
Yeah.
But you don't have to be a pro to see that.
Right.
So I think in some ways when you write songs, you can more easily see what someone else's song needs than in your own. So you just kind of need someone. And obviously when you've done your 10,000 hours, you get better at the skills element of songwriting. You just get better at just kind of analyzing it, and so I think that if I was in Jonas's position probably about 10 years before that, where I'd never co-written a song either. And the first song I ever co-wrote was with this guy called Jason Ingram, and I played him the song, and then I left it on his computer, and I came back the next day, and he'd written the bridge, and he's like, "What do you think?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's good. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that." And then we went through every line in the verse, and I was like, "Wow!" And there was a part of me that resented it because I wanted to be, I wanted to have everything. But what I suddenly realized was the power of being a smaller part of something great rather than in charge of something good. And as one of my heroes, Bono, says, he says, the enemy of great is not crap. The enemy of great is good.
Yeah.
And so I'd been through the process myself where I realized as I look back on my own records that I had been too easy on myself and I had not let other people in. And so I'd kind of really learnt that myself. So when I started working with people like Jonas, I was not going to let him go and let him be lazy. But it wasn't because I thought I was great. It was because I'd been through this process and realized how beneficial it was. Fortunately, like when you're writing a song, when you're working with an artist like Jonas, like he's a great songwriter and he's a great singer and he's got something to say. So that's a pleasure to be in the studio with. Plus, we just have fun. Like I don't think we ever had an argument or any problem. I mean, the only complaint I had is after a few months, he had to stop the record for a while because his wife got cancer, which I thought,
I was
disrespectful. I was like, what's she's good. Just come on, let's just keep working. And
I know.
But I don't know what it was with him. He had to go back and look after it. I was like, fine. We'll just stop it right here. I'm just kidding. But
she loves that, by the way. Just so
she loves that joke. She loves that joke.
Does.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of jokes, I have a quick
I thought you were
question.
going to say, speaking of cancer.
Speaking of that, let's dive in.
I thought you were going to say that. Sorry, Mike.
This has been on my mind.
Someone's got to be the
Jonas,
straight guy.
what is up with this story about you and some lady in a store?
Okay, let me just give this a little bit of a preamble. I will say that of the Americans that I know, and you know what? I've been in more states than most Americans have. I'm a fan of America. I talk to people everywhere. And I've hardly heard anyone that can come close to doing an Australian accent. Now, I'll tell you why that is. You see, here's the amazing thing about Americans. English, which is where you came from. I know you kicked them out. Got it. July 4th. I'm there. I understand. You kicked them out. But before that, when you said a word like shirt, it was shirt. But then Americans like, yeah, nah, shirt. We're going to take this language. We're going to make it literal. So the thing that's easy about me doing your accent is I can go from shirt to shirt just by adding the er.
That is creepy. Do that again?
Shirt.
Oh my gosh. Your accent went gonzo.
Well, no, that would be a very ethnocentric comment. My accent went from Australian to American, not went apart. Because you have an accent. You have an accent, Mike.
I do?
Oh, yeah.
It's an American accent, bro. Have you traveled outside the country?
That.
Mike, have you traveled outside the country?
I never have.
Right, that would be proof of that. Okay, so anyway. Because once you travel, you'll actually realize that you have this phenomenally wonderful thing called an American accent. It's world famous, and it's fantastic, Mike. You just don't realize that you have it, but it's so good, brother. Anyway, so to go from an Australian accent to an American accent, all you have to do is kind of just go hardcore that direction. Shirt. But coming back once you've gone all that way, that's difficult. So not many people know how far to come back. Jonas, a.k.a. Robbie Woods, he is one of the very, very, very few Americans I've heard that can actually do it. But on this particular day that he's going to tell you about, he might have bitten off a little more than he could chew. Jonas?
Let's hear the story.
All right, so my wife and I are in the mall, and so we have this thing where when I go shopping with my wife in the mall, we just separate. I'm just like, babe, call me when you're done, because I'm just not a mall guy. So I'm walking around and I go into Nordstrom's, which is a higher end for me.
Yeah.
Shopping store. So
that's high end for that. That's high end for anybody.
I don't know.
Me and all the big bucks I make.
Yeah.
So anyway, I walked in there and I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try out my Australian accent today. Like, nobody knows me from Adam. Why not? I think I'm
from Bruce. Good. Nobody knows me from Bruce.
Nobody knows me at all, mate. So I walked in there, and so this guy comes in. I grab some clothes that are way too expensive for me, and I walk up to him and I'm like, "Hi, mate. Is there any place I could try these on? I've got them." And he goes, "Oh my gosh, where are you from?" And I go, "I'm from Australia, mate." So he goes, "Oh my God, what? You're from Australia?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Susan in whatever is from Australia too. You have to meet her." And I was like, "Oh no, mate, I can't. I don't have time. My wife is shopping. I can't stay here." And so he goes, "No, you have to meet Susan. Nephew Susan." He races to get this girl. I am freaking out because not only am I not Australian, I don't have any history of this freaking country. What do I know about Australia? So she comes over and she's happy. Okay. She's excited to meet me and ask me a bunch of questions. She goes, "You're from Australia. What part?" I was like, oh my God. So that was my moment to be like, you know what? I was joking around. I'm just blah, blah, blah. I could have said it, but I didn't. I stayed. And what I said was, "I'm from Sydney."
Time out.
Yeah.
I think everything you need to know about Jonas is right here. Okay. He knows the gig's up, but you know what? He's still going to go for it. He's still going to, he's in the studio and he's hit his highest note, but he goes, I can do it. I can do it. And he comes back and still goes for the next note. Sorry, Jonas.
Oh, yeah. So she goes, I tell her I'm from Sydney. "I'm from Sydney. What part?" So in my head, I'm going, there are parts to Sydney. So I go, this is my actual response to that question. I said, the northern part. And at that moment, she just she gave me this one eyebrow up thing.
Oh, yeah.
I said, my father was in the military and I don't really remember much about it. And I was like, but my wife is waiting for me and I really need to go. But it's really nice to meet you. And I ran out of there weeping.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Hey, we got a question.
Though, seriously though, his accent, on a couple of words here and there, it needs some tuning, but it's actually pretty good. Seriously, it's pretty good.
Thanks.
Hey, we got a question from Stephanie Rotella. Stephanie Rotella is actually an up-and-coming artist in Rhode Island. She says, "I'm curious on the behind the scenes of how the spiritual direction was fostered with the band that was leading others to the Lord, and how they kept their focus on purpose of being kingdom-minded while in the Newsboys."
Good Lord.
I don't know.
That's a question.
That's a big question.
Can you say that one more time without me trying to read it in 0.06 font?
I'm not even sure if I understand this question.
Okay, read it again.
0.06.
Wait, I think I can do it. How did you foster the spiritual direction and focus your purpose on being kingdom-minded while with the Newsboys?
How did I personally, Stephanie?
I would assume you and maybe the band if you want to speak for them.
I would speak on their behalf.
Okay, yes. Stephanie, I'm going to go out on a limb here. This may end our friendship.
Oh boy.
But that just sounds so freaking complicated to me, Steph. How did you foster the spiritual direction of your life? It just sounds so in your head and so spiritual. You get up in the morning, you give your heart to the Lord, you try to get the other thoughts out of your brain, you do what he says, you go to bed. It's not that complicated. I think when you start to think that fostering even the word fostering, fostering, who the heck is fostering anything? If anyone's fostering anything, it's God and it's his love. So we're responding to his love, which comes from him. And then we're trying to hear his voice and do what he says. I mean, really, that's it. That just sounds so complicated to than me. I don't think anyone that I know who is not jacked up thinks that way. It's just too complicated. Like people are always say, is this ministry? What isn't ministry? Or is that your ministry? Is that? And I'm like, what is ministry anyway? Like, what is it? Ministry is, it really comes down to loving God and loving others. If that's ministry, we don't need that word anymore. If you're a plumber and you're loving God, you're in full-time ministry. If you're a pastor and you're loving God, you're in full-time ministry. If you're a soccer mom, if you're a politician, if you, whatever you are, if you're unemployed and trying to get a job, full-time ministry is loving God and loving others. All right, we got rid of that word. Mission trip. What is not a mission trip if you're following Jesus? If the mission is to love God and love others, then there's no such thing as a missions trip. Oh, you're going to Guatemala. Oh, that's a real mission trip. Oh, you're just looking after your 4 kids at home and homeschooling them. Sorry, Sally, that's not a missions trip. No, but it is a missions trip because mission is to follow God and listen to Him. So I think all this kind of fostering, all this presence, the presence of God. Oh my God, am I sick of people saying that? The presence of God. I'm like, dude, what? God turned up. Are you a heretic? You turned up, you muppet. God was already there before you turned up. You just sensed Him because the kick drum was on the 4 and the keyboard made it sound really good. But the bottom line is that God is just, presence is just as much with you when you're driving your car home, not using your turn signals, I might say. Anyway, so this whole, all our language is so complicated. Is this ministry? Was that witnessing? Witnessing, oh my gosh. Witness is a noun, it's not a verb. You are a witness. Whether you're a good or a bad one, you can't say I'm witnessing. Of course you're witnessing. You're breathing. When you take the shopping trolley and walk out of the supermarket and don't put it away, you're witnessing. You're witnessing that you're something. So
Steph just said the friendship's over, by the way.
It's so complicated. Jesus was asked, what's
No,
the
I'm
most
just kidding.
important thing? He said, love God and love others. On this, all the law and all the prophets. So whether you're playing music, whether you're doing a podcast, whether you're at home, whether you're a student, whether you're an old age pensioner, whether you're a pastor, whether you're whether you're a mathematician, if you're following God, our God is to love Him and love others. So Stephanie, as much as I understand, we all just got up and tried to follow Jesus every day and then went to bed. And anyone who tries to make it more complicated than that, I think is just tying themselves in knots. And there, folks, is my little sermon. It's not personal, Stephanie, but I think you're overthinking it, my love.
No, we appreciate Steph for asking that question. Jonas Woods is also here if you'd like to start listening to him instead. But I understand that you're probably not.
Yeah. Hey, look, you guys were Paul Colman fans. I want you to know I'm here for you to pick up.
There's a lot.
This is the only reason Jonas wanted to be on the podcast because he knew what you were going to do, and it was only going to gain him more fans. But
I think
we're reaching the hour mark. We're reaching the hour mark. I don't want to keep you guys. I don't want to keep you guys too long, but this last year, I don't want to talk too much about like COVID and everything that's happened, but it's really put a stop on a lot of people's plans. You know, Jonas, I know you had just finished a tour for your new album, like right before kind of things went down. You were in 19, you had a tour going. And then in 20, things just shut down. But a lot of bands that we've been speaking to have been doing some really awesome things. I know you guys, Paul, I think you've had a couple of live streams that were happening. And you also have a live stream this Sunday. Is that still going on? I think you're doing an online request show.
My man.
We got you. Yeah.
I'll get from Stephanie. She might request that I cancel the show.
Well, she just sent me a private message said, we are no longer friends. So.
Did she really?
No.
I hope she didn't take it personally because I loved her question.
No, well, you're
COVID, got it.
You're keeping busy. You've got your show on Sunday. Jonas, you're going back out into the world over the last couple of months, and I know you're booked a ton of dates over the fall, over the spring and summer. You've got a big show with Mike Weaver on Saturday, May 29th over at Christ Community Church in East Taunton. So I wanted to make sure people knew you guys got some stuff coming up. What are some things you guys are excited for this year? We'll start with Jonas, by the way, just to
All right. Excited. I'm just excited to be in front of people again. I really do love people, honestly. I feel like one of the things that I have done well in my career, if I've done anything well, is to not focus my energy on making fans, but really, really establishing relationships with people and being friends with people as much as I could, and it's easy for me because, when you have 5 people at your show, you can be friends with those 5. It's
Stop
pretty
it, Jonas. Stop it, Jonas. I
So,
know there's at least 7.
7. Yeah. There's 2 that I can't be friends with, but I've actually really, really missed those people. I mean, they're a huge part of my life. And, look, I get paid to do music and go to their churches and stuff, but my wife and my kids, we all really love to travel. This allows us to do that, and it allows us to share our music with some of the best people on the planet. And so we're super excited to get back out there for sure.
Nice. I think you were just up writing and recording the last couple of months. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What you've been doing?
Well, I've been producing some records, believe it or not, which is shocking, seeing as I didn't know anything about it. Even when I started with Paul, but working with Old Bear, they opened up their studio, allowing me to use that space to bring in artists, and so I've been really enjoying it. Being on the other side of it, where I'm listening to people's music and speaking into it, has been really exciting. And it's kept my mind, I don't want to say sharp, but in some way, it has. It's kept my mind focused on music when I haven't been on the road. I mean, being a year away is just strange, But yeah, no, we've been keeping busy, just writing, and I am trying to write a new record now, but I'm not. I guess I'm not pressuring myself, right? I'm working with these other artists. I'm working on this tour, and in the midst of it, I'll just write music as it comes along,
Mm-hmm. Nice. And how about you, Paul? How have you been staying busy, and what are you looking forward to in the next year or so?
Well, a year ago, maybe 13 months ago, I was on a tour bus with Danny Goki heading up to New England to start a 30-date tour. And we set up and everything, and then half an hour before the show was supposed to start, the night got cancelled, and then we got back in the bus, and the tour got cancelled, and so we went back from Connecticut, 19-hour drive on a tour bus back to Nashville, and most of my shows in the last 10 years have been in Europe, and so then all of my shows got cancelled, and I just got the feeling like it wasn't coming back for me. And at the same time, I realized that after 27 years, part of me was just kind of sick of the road. And so I made a bold decision and I put out a resume. And I hadn't written a resume in my life. And I also had not done a job interview since 92, and that was for delivering pizzas when I was in college. And so I threw out my resume to everything I could think of, and I, put on things like I'm good with customers and all this sort of stuff. And there was only one person that called me back, and it was for a job selling health insurance. And so I am now licensed in 32 states
Nice.
to sell health insurance. I sell CBD products as well. And I am working in an office 12 hours a day selling health insurance. And so my online concerts have just been something to raise a little bit of money here and there, or just to keep in touch. But I actually do not miss being on the road. I don't miss touring. I don't miss performing. Because in the end, for me, I'm a little bit different to Jonas. Jonas is he is an exquisite musician. I'm an entertainer. That's really my thing. I used music to get to people, but music is not my first love. People are my first love. And despite what Stephanie might be feeling now, I love you too, Stephanie. And if anything I said was harsh, it wasn't meant to be. I care about you as well. And so for me, I'm on the phones 12 hours a day talking to people and helping them get health insurance. I'm having the greatest time talking to all these people and helping them find something. But it's not. I'm actually having a great time doing something different. I don't miss the travel, and honestly, I kind of got sick of myself too. I get sick of saying the same songs and the same stories, and so I'm having a wonderful time doing something. I may never go back to doing music full time, and that's actually totally fine with me. I love what I'm doing.
Nice.
So
Well,
I have a question for you. Newsboys calls you tomorrow. Jody Davis
Yeah.
is out.
Yeah.
They say, you know something, we have not been awesome since Paul Coleman's
Yeah.
been here.
Which
You
is
coming?
okay.
Are you,
Wait.
are
The first statement might be true. The second one wouldn't be. Keep going.
you coming back?
No.
Really?
Yeah, I just won 50-50 custody of my youngest daughter for a year
Mm,
before she
That's awesome.
graduates, and I'm not giving it up for anything.
yeah.
And I
That's
paid a
amazing.
pretty
That's
penny for it.
amazing.
But having said that, like I've been the kind of person that, because I built my identity on stage. Remember how I was talking about on stage Paul and backstage Paul? Like I really got lost in the idea of projecting something that really wasn't me, and it got mixed up with my gift. So the
Mm,
part of it was a gift and part of it was a projection. And what I want to be is a good man more than I want to be a good performer. But my gift was so far ahead of my character. Like, Mike, you have to understand, like, I'm a world class entertainer. I'm not saying that because I'm arrogant. I'm just telling you because it's true. I've traveled the
mm-hmm.
world, I've seen it. I'm a world class entertainer. So what? What's that going to do for you in a relationship? That doesn't help you stay married. Like, I watched Jonas and Becky, and I wouldn't say the word is jealous, but I have such respect for him that he's loved this woman and he's loved her well and she wants to stay with him. I can't say I did that. I traveled the world and did all these things, but I failed. And I'm not beating myself up, but it humbled me enough to start chasing character. And so when I had an opportunity through this pandemic to just sort of let it go even more, I felt like, you know what, I want to do that. And if I don't get a chance to do this gift again, it's okay. I want to be a good man. I want to be a good dad. I want to be a man of my word. I want to be someone that's faithful. And I got to tell you, part of this job where you're talking to people, but you've really got to know what you're talking about. And I've studied this industry of yours, which is complicated, for about 3,000 hours now. And as I said, I'm licensed in 32 states. I had to do tests and certifications and all this sort of stuff and learn about things I never learned before. And it's been wonderful for my character. It's been wonderful for me not being this guy trying to say, yeah, how you doing tonight? Yeah, good to see you guys. No, I'm Paul Coleman. But actually just get on the phone and go, hey, hey, this is Paul. I noticed you were looking for online health insurance. And they don't even know who I am. And it doesn't matter because it's them that's the focus. So I think everything about this job has been really good for my character. Having said that, Jones, Soulfest. Soulfest in August in New Hampshire, I believe, is on. And I think we're probably going to be there.
Nice.
So every now and then we do something. But even getting a chance,
cool.
even getting a chance to talk to you guys, like I wouldn't get a chance to share these things if my music hadn't have been something that got someone's attention. But in the end, it's about sharing who we are as people, not so much about us as musicians. So I'm happy for that, whatever that opportunity that gives me. But I don't miss it at all. I really don't.
I will tell you one thing to kind of go what Paul was saying about. I've known Jonas, or Robbie as we call him, for he was in my wedding, so at least 10, 12 years. His identity is not Jonas Woods.
No.
His identity is Christ. You know what I mean? That's one thing I've always admired about Jonas, Robbie, whatever you want to call yourself today. That's what I admire about you. Your identity is not found in your music. Your identity is found in Christ. And that's what, not to get into this topic too much, but that's the one thing I find, as you were saying before, the Christian music is so missing, is the authentic people who identify as Christians, not whatever the industry is saying who they are. And that's one thing I truly admire about Jonas.
Well, again, I mean, I appreciate both of you guys coming on here and talking and being honest with us. It was really nice to hear, kind of where you guys have been and where you guys are now. I don't want to take too much of your time here. We're over an hour, and you are very, very busy people. Yeah.
One sec. I don't know whether you're winding that up because you need to go or whether we need to go, but I want to ask a question because I'm someone that's done 10 years of therapy.
Sure.
I want to just make sure that Stephanie's good because I took something that she said and I ran on a rant about it, right?
I will find out right now.
Hang on, one sec. But I took something she said and springboarded to another world, right? But that may not necessarily be what she was saying. It might have been just the words she used, and I use those words in my story to go somewhere. So what's important to me after 10 years of therapy is that Stephanie has a chance to respond and say, no, that's not what I meant, or for her to say, because I might have just taken these words and gone there, and she might feel misrepresented, and I would not want to have the opportunity to not let that kind of happen. You know what I mean? So I don't know who Stephanie is, but God bless her. I just want to make sure before we go that that's kind of an important thing. You know what I'm saying?
No, I appreciate that.
She actually might come on. Give her about 2 seconds there. She's responding right now.
Yeah, well,
she's gonna.
So to give a little background,
she can listen
Steph
and talk
is
at the same time. Men can't. You know.
Steph went to this is Steph who went to youth group with us back in the day.
Okay.
And she does music in the Rhode Island area, and probably outside of that, I might be limiting her, but super good voice,
Cool.
Great person. While we're waiting for her, Paul, I do have a question. Right. Have you ever called someone for health insurance and said, hey, this is Paul Colman of the Paul Colman Trio or of New Boys fame? And if you haven't, can you please do that at some point?
No. You know what I normally do is what happens is that these poor souls, they search online for something to do with health insurance, and then somehow they get bombarded with people calling them. So what I do is when I call, I say, hey, this is Paul, how you doing? They're like, hi. And I say, hey, listen, let me ask you a question. Have a lot of people been calling you about health insurance? They're like, yeah. And I said, you've been bombarded? Yep. So let me ask you this. Were you actually even looking for it? Sometimes they say, well, yes. And I say, okay. Well, firstly, I'm sorry that you've been bombarded. I actually accidentally got on this list myself, and I found people to be very rude. And she's like, yes. And I said, well, that's why the first thing I asked you was not to start talking about it, was to actually ask about you and how you're doing with it. I said, so were you actually looking or not? And they said, well, yes. And I said, all right, well, this is what I need you to do. There's this great government website called donotcall.gov. Put your number in there. You'll get rid of most of these jokers. Anyone else that comes through, tell them you're broke and they'll hang up on you. I said, but I'm independent. I don't have to make a sale for any particular company. I'm not corporate material. And I would like to help you. So let's get rid of those jokers and just talk to me. And it's amazing how...
Adam Krim says that he did call me back once regarding
Amanda.
And Amanda says you called her back and sang her a song.
Who? Amanda? I did.
Yeah.
She's one of my
she
clients.
Moved to North Carolina,
a lovely lady.
Right?
She does. She just moved. Hi, Amanda. You crazy woman. Okay, so what do we got from Steph? Talk to me.
Oh, did you say Steph's coming on?
No, I asked you. Is she?
Oh, she's not coming on. She's not upset. I think she was just.
She did say earlier that she thought she was misunderstood, but she thanks you.
Okay, so I got a statement to make to you, Stephanie. Right now, the reason I stopped this whole ending is because you're really important, and I see a word or two, and I get a little triggered because I'm a pastor's kid, and I kind of got chewed up and spat out by religion sometimes, and so I see a couple of words, and I'm like, blah, 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 blah. And even though what I'm saying I believe in, I just want to make sure, Stephanie, that you and I are good because you're awesome, and God loves you, and He loves me. And if there's any way I took something that you said and kind of made it seem like you were this, forgive me. Like I said, I don't recant anything I particularly said because I believe in it all. But the reason I stopped my mate is because when it comes down to it, if I'm saying love God and love others, if I'm actually saying that, and I'm actually saying to be led by the Spirit, I'm not thinking I'm making it up, but I heard it, hey, Colman, hey, you're talking about this stuff. And I heard that voice kind of say, just check on this. So, Steph, we're good. Love you. You're awesome. Thanks for asking that question. And my answer, take two, is I don't express myself the way that you asked it, but all of us would really be serious about getting up and every day giving our lives to God and asking Him to lead us in everything we did. That would be my answer. But I got a bit spicy. If we're all curries, I'm a Masaman number 7. You know.
Oh man, that was great.
So I just want to make it clear to everybody. Paul was stating, I think, that we will see him at Soulfest this year.
Yes,
I think
Soulfest
that's
is
what you were.
Soulfest is
saying.
my favorite festival in America.
And are you doing a workshop this year too? I think.
I
Right?
am, but also I just confirmed that I'm playing on the main stage with the band.
Nice.
Are you
With
going
a
to be
band?
Are you going to be there, Jonas?
Which band?
Well,
Whatever band I wish.
it's a big
Nice.
secret.
Are
I
you going to
believe
be
I will
there?
be there. Yeah, I'm gonna rush my tail back. Yeah.
Jonas
So-
should be in your band.
So
And Eric Lee Brumley will be there too, as well.
Mhm.
So do you think you'd like to do a guest appearance with me, Jonas?
I mean, who doesn't want to be on the stage?
You know
With
that
Paul
a
Colman.
few years ago there was a
I
song
feel
that
like you're
Jonas.
asking Jonas out.
Hey, can I
Sorry.
ask one question? I know that you were just winding it up, and then I just suddenly just stopped you. Is there a time
We're
limit
in
for
no
you
rush.
guys, or were you
No,
just
this
gonna
was for
set up?
you, not for me.
Okay,
We're here
great,
all
then let's
night.
just keep going. So a few years ago,
I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I'll be right back.
a few years ago, but then a year before
He's
that,
literally
Jonas
leaving.
came down to Nashville, and a wonderful friend of ours, a friend called Klaas. He's from Germany. He lives in Kansas City, and we just adore this guy. Great songwriter. We all descended on my apartment for some songwriting. Now, Jonas gets up at 7 o'clock. Klaas and I get up at we're at that stage anyway. We're getting up at like noon. So by the time we got up, Jonas already had like 6 song ideas. So there was this one tune that he was doing, and he kind of had the first line of the chorus and most of the melody, and I was like, I like that. And so we worked on it, and it was a song that we wrote together. And so coming up to Soulfest the next year, when I had it on a record, I said to Jonas, "You want to sing it with me?" And he said, "Great." I said, I got an idea." And he said, "What's that?" And I said, "I'm going to put a chair out, sort of like, on the stage, and I want you to come out and sit on it. And then every time the chorus comes up, just hop up and sing it like in the same microphone, and then go back to the chair." Well, Jonas didn't know, but I also told Ace, one of our stage guys, to just bring out water to him and an umbrella and all sorts of stuff. And so it was this awesome thing where it was just fun, really, really fun. So Jonas, you'll join me this year in some way.
In some way. Absolutely, man.
And also, I will say this: a few years before, when Becky got her stage 4 cancer, Jonas was in the crowd. And what happened that day? I can't remember what exactly happened.
So
It
Becky
was worried, wasn't it? It was worried.
It was worried. So Becky was diagnosed, and so I canceled all my performances at Soulfest, and I called them and I said, "Hey, look, I've been doing this for a long time. I would like to just come and spend the day. I don't want to perform." And so they were gracious, obviously. And so we just went and hung out. And so I walked out in front of the main stage, and Paul was up there, and Paul called me out from the crowd onto the stage, and he asked me to sing "Worried," whatever. And I
say it right.
yeah, and I didn't want to. I really didn't feel like it was the thing, And that was a very powerful moment, believe it or not, for me to sing that song in the face of, my wife's sickness. Was like just. It was like a stone in the stomach, but it ended up. Genuinely looking back at that moment, I talk about it all the time because it was a life-changing experience for me to sing something that I didn't fully grasp or believe at the moment. It was awesome, man.
Wow, that's awesome. And just to make sure that everyone who's listening understands, she is
Yes.
well, and everything is
Yes.
great
She's
currently.
100% well. Yeah, she's 100%
That's awesome.
well.
We probably wouldn't be able to be as light about it if.
Yeah, I know that's true, right? Oh, my
Well,
wife.
I have to admit, Paul, knowing you, we might have still gone there. I feel
Hey,
like,
hey.
Well,
that record was interesting because we had a song written called "Not Falling Apart."
oh yes.
So this song on the record is called "Not Falling Apart," and the lyric
I'm
was
not
written.
falling apart.
Right. It was written
Yeah.
from the perspective of somebody in the hospital, sick, and they the line was, "I'm not falling apart. I'm holding on by a thread that's tied to your heart." And it was from the perspective of now, Paul and I are writing a record, and Becky's not sick. Okay, so we're writing this, and I pitched this song, and we both kind of agree that it's a little heavy. We're like, this is a kind of a heavy song for this record, And so we put it aside. And then fast forward, I remember calling Paul, and I don't know if I called you and told you that Becky was sick, and we just kind of, it was actually a really intense moment. And then a few weeks later, you called and said, I pulled that song out again. Oh, like, it makes me emotional thinking about it, because that song was like, it just spoke to the situation that we're in the middle of, in that moment.
Unbelievable.
And Paul, because of the scenario, and I wasn't going down there, I was going to focus on Becky entirely. Paul took that song. And so when you hear that song on the record, I had very little to do with it. In fact, I think it might even have been my scratch vocal.
It was like this. It was like the song was like this. It was like
acoustic.
I'm not falling apart, and I'm hanging on by you. It's tied to your heart. It was that kind of vibe. It wasn't like. And so I built 3.5 days. I built all this track, like, and then I was listening to it, going, "This sucks. This is terrible." So I pulled everything down to just the vocal, and I just sat like this and listened to it for half an hour, and it ended up being piano and cello played by Matt Slocum from Sixpence None the Richer. That's all it was, and it suddenly was this heartfelt song. But like you wrote at the start of the record before your wife got sick.
Yeah.
And then it ends up becoming this song after she's sick that sounds like a song she's writing.
Yeah.
That's that.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's what I'm talking about.
Because when I remember, music, you either give the credit to yourself or you give credit to it's coming from somewhere else. Like, you can't.
Yeah. I remember doing a shoot with Jonas. I believe this is before we were shooting the cover photo for Transparent.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Paul, I do photography for a living, and I remember
it's either that or being a rifleman.
Yeah.
He shoots people.
Yeah. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think Paul just said it, but when you wrote that song, it had nothing to do with Becky at all.
Mm-mm.
I remember
Isn't that amazing?
I remember him telling me, Mike, there's a song that I am releasing that is coincidentally or totally God. Everything about this song is about what I'm going through right now.
Yeah.
And I remember my mouth just being like, holy cow, like only God can do that.
Well, that record, I mean, recording, I have goosebumps thinking about recording. There are songs on that record. There's a song called Mess that talks about just me being a train wreck during that whole time. I mean, singing that song in the studio that night, it was like,
jeez, man.
It was just a
power. It was one of those situations when the producers need to go, can we get some more passion and feeling, please?
Well, I'll tell you right now, my favorite song on Transparent is Welcome Home.
Transparent? Oh, yeah. I don't even remember half those songs. My Lord.
Oh, well, that song. Do you remember when we were getting married? First of all, Welcome Home is about dying, going to see Jesus.
That's kind of thing I'm into. I write a lot of songs about that. It's something it's my niche.
That song is one of the most beautiful lyrically songs I've ever heard. I love that song.
Death Cells. It's always gonna be here.
It's funny. I remember sitting down with April, my wife, and said, "Okay, when you walk down the aisle, I wanted to play the song Welcome Home." And Jonas goes, "You know that's about death, right?" I'm like, "Oh, never mind. Skip that song."
Oh my God.
Oh, that's funny, bro. That's funny.
Yeah, but that song. Even when my mom passed away in June, we played that song because Jonas was going to come play at the funeral, but you were in New York producing, and we still played that song at the funeral, and I was bawling my eyes out because it's such a emotional song.
Yeah,
it's beautiful. And then when Nick comes in with the electric guitar in that song at the end of the song, it was just like, love it.
Well, hey guys, I'm gonna have to wrap it up soon. I'm staying in a casino, and they gave me $10 free.
Nice.
So
then you should give that to the poor.
That 10? No. It's 10 chips. I can't give that out. I have to use that.
Take a poor person into the casino and let them go at it,
and give them a gambling issue. Yes,
exactly. I'm
good job, Jonas. You're saving someone.
I shouldn't
By
have ended
spending those
this.
yourself, you are caring for us.
Yeah,
That's true.
I am. Amen.
Well, hey, thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate it to both of you. Any final words from either of you that you want to impart? Guys, this is a podcast.
Can you imagine? Can you
Can people
imagine?
see us?
Can
Are
you
we
imagine
live?
me
You're
without the
live.
prayer before? You imagine me without the prayer? You know what I'm saying?
I know.
I appreciate the prayer before. For people, who are just listening, we prayed that we would stay decent about our words, make sure we don't go anywhere crazy. And if you've been listening to this show, we've gone a little crazy, but it's been good. It's been a great podcast. I've enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah.
A little background information. Mike and I will text throughout the show, like, "Hey, is this going okay? Are you happy? Everything like that. Is this guy nuts?" And on this one, we're just like, "Are you happy?" But like, this is great. I love it. This is awesome. Like,
Okay.
this is cool.
Okay.
So it's been good. It's been good.
Where's
But we
the-
appreciate both of you guys. Jonas, I know you're ready to spend that money. So I appreciate you. Well, actually, you are in the middle of producing. So I appreciate you taking the time and spending it with us instead of what you get paid to do. So I appreciate it.
No, I mean, I can just go lay in the bed if you guys want to keep going. I'll sit back there and listen. I don't mind. I'm just
As long as
saying.
you don't get undressed in your pajamas, we're good to go.
No, I sleep. Full
Yeah.
of clothes.
Nobody. That would be when I would be falling apart.
Now, Paul, I also appreciate you
I
mentioning.
caught that. That was good. I caught that.
Your health insurance company is out of Nashville, right?
Yeah. Boomerang Health Insurance.
Hey,
Nice.
now.
Nashville has become one of my favorite places. I just visited there 2 years ago. I went in 2019.
I was here.
I was there. I went to the Bad Christian Conference down in Nashville. It was called the Bad Christian Conference.
Bad?
It was yes. It was at where is it? It was right near Martin's Barbecue in Nashville. Which
People
is
were
Bad?
surprised that you weren't there, Paul.
Bad
Christian
songs
Conference.
That didn't
Yes.
make it. What was the?
It was a Christian conference for people who did not feel comfortable going to a church. It was for people who had been hurt by the church. King's Kaleidoscope was there. Derek Minor, Emery, and some bands like that. It was really cool. It was right outside Nashville.
How about that?
Yeah, it was a great time. It was a great time. But
well, I want you to know, both of you guys, if you're here, I mean, as long as you sign a policy, I will hang out with you.
Well, I may actually come to Soulfest this year. I've never been to Soulfest, and you guys, I checked out the lineup, and I heard that Paul Colman and Jonas Woods are going to be there, but there's also a bunch of other really cool people too. So I might check it out.
Where do you guys both live? Where are you?
We're in Rhode Island.
Ah.
Hence the Rhode Island question earlier, where Mike was wanting some Rhode Island love.
It feels like in a lot of ways. It feels like in a lot of ways that Rhode Island just doesn't get the credit that it deserves.
No, it's a great state.
It's a great state,
because it's a smaller place, right? It's a smaller place,
It is. Yeah. One would say the smallest state in the union.
Right.
And of all the states in America, it's one of them.
We're one of them.
And I mean that
from the bottom of my heart.
I mean it from the heart of my bottom as well, and that's just saying something. But seriously, guys, thanks for having us. For all the things that we might say about the genre of Christian music, it's done a lot of good in people's lives. A lot of people have got encouragement. A lot of people have got something from it. A lot of people have had a true experience of God from it. And there might be things that we say where we say, oh, it isn't what it used to be, and we want it to be this, and we want it to be that. And I would be one of those people. I'm not going to argue. But the truth is that God is bigger than any of our ideas. He's bigger than music. He's bigger than our opinions of music. He's bigger than our opinions of everything. He'll speak to people however he wants to speak to them.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And so, after all my comments and after all my thoughts and I'm someone that's going to, kind of, I tend to hear church experience from the ears of someone who's an outsider. It's a curse and it's a gift in the sense that when I hear all the cliches and it worries me that someone doesn't understand it. I've never been in the club. I've never been on the team. I've never drunk the Kool-Aid, so to speak. But also, to also have the freedom to say that, you know what, God has done a lot of great things through this genre of music, and even if I don't think it's great, or even if I don't understand it, His love and His ability to touch people through anything is bigger than anything I'll ever understand. And so, it's good to talk about it. It's good to wrestle with it. It's good to say, oh man, why aren't we more like this and why aren't we like that? I think it's good to do that. It's healthy. And I probably would more agree with you ever than disagree with where you guys are coming from, because that's my personal taste. But the last thing that I want to say is just to say, you know, fortunately, I'm not in charge. And for everyone involved, that is a blessing. and God can speak through anyone, anywhere, even Jonas Woods. So
I got to tell you, I
I'm just
love
saying
this
that
podcast.
that's grace. That's grace right there.
This was a great podcast. It was very authentic.
Oh.
That's actually the name of Jonas's new record. I'm Authentic. I think there's a
Working
title.
101.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight, guys. Today we have Paul Colman, Jonas Woods. It was an amazing podcast. And guys, if you could stay on just before when we're going to wrap up, just stay on for a couple seconds. But guys, we're the 4-7 podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. Until next time, talk to you soon.
Bye.